So how has your behavior changed as an investor, and which sector continue to excite you?
Initially, when I invested in India, it was primarily in fixed deposits, if you can call that investment, and real estate.
So if one was investing in India, it was the love for India.
Actually, Indian equities and bonds do offer a compelling story for investors.
You now have investors who are younger, hungrier.
The awareness and the sentiment around India has shifted a lot.
Roti, kapra, makan, mobile and internet.
It could end up being a value play in the next 3 to 6 months.
Hello and a very warm welcome to Navigate with HSBC. Today, let us take a look at the evolving investment landscape, key sectors and smart strategies for NRIs looking to grow their wealth in India. Joining us for this conversation is Abhilash Narayan, investment strategist at HSBC, and also someone who has his own personal experience as an NRI making investments in India. Let's get started with a personal lens. I want to look at your journey as an investor, how it started, and then, of course, come to the larger question of what do NRIs expect when they are looking at India as an investment hub? What are the challenges? Let's do a little SWOT analysis of sorts as to what works. But first off, very keen to hear your story.
That's a trip down the memory lane. So I predominantly grew up in Dehradun, and then I did my engineering in IIT Roorkee, IIM Ahmedabad, I did my MBA, and then straight away I moved to Singapore for my first job. And I guess investing journey as an NRI mirrors my growth in knowledge about investing. So I have to admit, initially when I invested in India, it was primarily in fixed deposits, if you can call that investment, and real estate, because I didn't know better, and there was that home bias. But as years passed by and I got a better understanding of the market, I realized that actually Indian equities and bonds do offer a compelling story for investors globally, not just NRIs. And that's when I started to get more active and investing more in financial markets in India.
They always say that times changed so much that back in the days there wasn't so much being offered. So if one was investing in India, it was the love for India, right? But gradually people started to see another story emerge. What was that moment for you when you said, love for the country, of course, my roots, but hey, this looks like a great opportunity from investment point of view as well, and I should be looking at this geography compared to others?
The event happened about 5-6 years back, once India demonstrated improvements in government sort of reforms, through government reforms, and the structural growth trend. You rightly pointed out, over the last decade or so, there's been a big shift in ease of doing sort of investing as an NRI. I remember when I first opened my NRI account, most of the banks in India sent your OTPs to Indian mobile phones, which didn't make sense, right? Obviously, today things have improved a lot. Everything can be done online, so that is there. I think the second factor is obviously the awareness and the sentiment around India has shifted a lot. Back in 2013, we saw a big crisis of confidence as far as India and some of the other emerging markets were concerned. But today, if you look at it, global investors view India much more positively, so there's that positive narrative. And I would say, thirdly, the options that are available to NRIs have just increased massively. Back in the day, you had a choice of maybe a handful of funds, some insurance investments. But today, I think most banks offer hundreds of products catering to various needs, both in public as well as private markets. Right. So that's been a big development as far as opportunity set is concerned.
It's also very interesting when we look at the demography. You now have investors who are younger, hungrier, and who are looking at perhaps India as an investment from a lens of being robust about the love for the country as well. And they want to give back, and they also want to secure their future while making these investments. What are the conversations like? Did you see a shift in conversations within your own circles? What were people talking about, say, 10 years ago, and how did, like you said, 5 years ago, things started to change?
There's been a big shift, right? 10 years back or 12 years back, it was, okay, which bank is offering you the best fixed deposit rate, NRI fixed deposit rate? A few years down the line, the conversation shifted to how do you invest in mutual funds? What are the good options there? SIP options are the best. But I think in the last 2 or 3 years, there's been a realization that apart from public markets, there is a lot of potential in the private market opportunities as well. So my colleagues, my friends, they're all looking at ways to invest in private markets, markets through
Right.
alternative funds or directly investing in new startups to gain that exposure to the really high growth
Yeah.
part of the Indian economy.
I've also seen a shift from real estate markets to diversifying portfolios. And I think that also has happened in the last 4 or 5 years. It has happened with Indians. There's so much diversification in our own personal portfolios. And I perhaps see that same thing happening with the NRIs in that community as well, that, you're now looking at things beyond just the real estate market, which used to be the most promising at one point in time, comparatively to the others.
Absolutely. And I think that's been a function of two things. One is we've seen the gains and the price appreciation in real estate markets slow down over the past decade.
Yeah.
Prior to that, real estate was on a very, very
Yeah.
strong run. That's led to a shift in sentiment. And I think it's again linked to the opportunity set. The opportunities and the vehicles you have to invest in public markets have improved. Back in the day, you just had funds which offered you a broad market exposure. Today, you have funds which give you specific
Yeah.
sector exposure so that people like me, people like you can really pick and choose the areas they want an exposure to.
How has your choices been influenced? What were the sectors that you were traditionally interested in? So how has your behavior changed as an investor, and which sector continue to excite you?
I would say that when I started investing, it was a more style focus. So I was more keen on investing in small and mid caps because at that point of time, the valuations were more,
True.
favorable. There was a strong earnings growth that was visible. Over the past couple of years, we've seen small and mid cap names get a bit more expensive from a valuation perspective. So from a style preference, large cap sector stocks look more attractive. But from a sector perspective, right now, to me, healthcare, financials, and industrials look as the most attractive sectors. If I talk about healthcare, I mean, it's a sector that offers fairly robust earnings growth. It's a defensive sector, in my opinion. And, as Indians get more affluent, there will be a greater willingness to spend on quality healthcare. So it's a sector that benefits from the structural trends lying in Indian growth story. Financials, obviously, it's a sector that's lagged a bit. There were some concerns around, margin pressures, etc., and they will persist. But banks are starting from good base as far as asset quality is concerned, and it's a sector which trades, significantly cheaper to the broader market. So it could end up being a value play in the next 3 to 6 months. And lastly, industrial sector is one which is benefiting both from the government's focus on high quality capex, but also the Viksit Bharat initiative, which plans or intends to increase India's exports to $2 trillion by 2030. And I was just surprised to read a statistic a few days back that India is now the second largest producer of mobile phones, and that just shows how far we've come as far as our manufacturing capabilities are concerned. So industrial sector is again something that stands out as attractive over the medium to long term.
They always say our population, our demography has its advantage and disadvantages. But look at the mobile market. It's almost like roti, kapra, makan, mobile and internet, now that we are looking at. I'm not surprised that our demography is actually pushing certain sectors in a way that can be of more advantage to the overall economic growth. But tell me more about your most rewarding investment. It's like it's choosing your favorite child.
But I would say decision to add more exposure to markets during 2020, the pandemic induced sell-off was a good investment. And I think when I look at the factors behind it, there were two ways of looking at it.
Right.
If the pandemic continues and we are in perpetual lockdowns, then it doesn't really matter where you invest. But if we do emerge from the pandemic, this dip is a buying opportunity. I had the temptation to sort of play it safe, go for hybrid kind of investments, equity and debt. But then I realized, I'm still fairly young, and it makes sense that when I'm looking at long-term wealth creation, to have more exposure to equities. That time, I did put all of that additional money into equity markets, and thankfully, that has done well.
Fantastic. It reminds me of the famous quote by Warren Buffett where he says, when it's raining opportunities, go with a bucket and not with a thimble. So I think you made hay when the sun shone.
It's very daunting when you start your investment journey.
What are some of the common mistakes you see people making?
It's very, very common to worry about rupee depreciation, theme around having too much cash.
I think Gift City is also getting a lot of NRI attention. What do you have to say about that?